Hi, I'm Peter O'Reilly and I'm going to show you how to set up a load cell in the SPIC machine. So this is the SPIC machine here, and I have a load cell loosely just held in the machine now. So if you come closer here, you'll see it's written on the load cell, the load cell has 100 newtons. We have a 5 newton, a 100 newton and a 2.5 kilonewtons. So it's always written on the load cell and they're all kept in one cupboard. So basically the load cell is held in with this pin here, this large pin here. Okay, so when you bring it to the machine, you just insert this pin that holds it there. If the pin doesn't go in easily, rotate the load cell through 180 and try again. This nut on the top is meant to take out the slack, so that has to be wound away from the load cell initially to get the pin in, and then you wind it down against it like that, and that takes the slack out. Okay, so you won't be able to get it in if that nut is down, so the nut needs to be back away from it first. Then you insert the pin and then you bring this down against it like that. Okay, now before you ever plug in or unplug a load cell, you need to check that the isolator is off. So this control cabinet on the side of the machine, around here, this isolator switch should be horizontal, which means it's off. Okay, so that means there's no voltage going through the load cell when we put it into the machine. So the next thing we want to do is we want to put the D connector, this D connector, into the machine, and it's going to go in that configuration, not like that, so with the D facing downwards like that. So basically I'll pass that around the back of the machine and show you where this goes. So it goes just here. So that's the main connection to the machine here from the computer. So just above that, that connection there, that's where the D connector is going to go. So it's going to go in like this, in here. So just try and line it up as best you can, then push it gently in. Okay, just tighten these screws lightly, you don't need to tighten them hard, just tighten them lightly. Okay, and that's it, that's in now. So the next thing we can do is we can just hook this wire up. There's a little hook just on the back here. We can hook the wire up just out of the way and make sure there's plenty of slack in it and it's not caught on anything. So there's plenty of slack. This nut is tightened down against that. So now what we can do is we can switch on the isolator. So down here, the isolator can now switch to 90 degrees. So now the machine is not fully on. There's now a voltage going through the control circuitry. Okay, so the next thing to do now is to open a method file. So we come on here and go to user shortcut in here. Take a second to focus. So user shortcut, open that. And then we want to open a relevant file. So I'm going to go into my folder, which is Peter, here. Open that one. And I'm going to go into a simple compression test. So a simple compression test, it's marked 50 newtons, but it actually will do this one here. So simple compression test. Now, when it's opening, you hear the clicking noise. That means the software is communicating with the hardware. So it'll open now. File being loaded. Okay, so press close on this. Okay, so the next thing to do is if this number here, crosshead, corresponds with this value here on the machine, and it does, then you switch on. So you switch on here, this on button here. Okay, so now the machine is fully on. So now if we want, we can move the crosshead up and down. So we press this position button, a little light will light up beyond it, and now this will come down. So now I'm moving the crosshead down. So the next thing I want to do is I want to put on compression platens for this test. So this is what the compression platens look like. Just a small flat platen, and it's held on with this pin here. So I'm going to put a platen on the bottom. So there's the bottom holder here. So this platen will go on here like this, and the pin should go in easily. If it doesn't go in easily, turn the platen through 180 and try it again. Again, this knurled nut is kept away from it initially, and then we bring it up against it, and that takes out any slack. So the same procedure happens on the top. There's a knurled nut here, and I move the knurled nut away like that, that direction like that, and then put this pin. Okay, so we put the top platen in. So just line it up here like this, and the pin should go in easily. If it doesn't, turn it around through 90 degrees, and then wind this nut down against it again, just the same as before. Okay, so now the top platen is in and the bottom platen is in. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to reference the two platens. So press position over here and then press down. So we're going to bring it down until they almost meet. So when you hold your finger on it, it will accelerate. So it's coming down. So now what's happened is it's tripped a limit. Previously set limit in the software, it says it's been tripped. So what you do here is you go up to machine, double click the machine icon there. Okay. It says range limited violated, that's okay. So double click the machine. Alright. And this machine will open up. So what you need to do is go into this lower soft end here. If you can see it, lower soft end just there. And you need to make this a very low value. So if I make that 100, 100, 100, and then press OK. So now it'll work. So go back over here, press position on this and then press down. Now it will come down. So when you get close, you will need to just stab it like this. So I'm using this motion here like that as opposed to holding my finger on it. So just press like this as you get close, otherwise it's going to crash. Okay, so they're getting fairly close there now like that. Okay, so that's close enough now. So now what I do is come over to the software, go back into machine, say OK like that. So now what we want to do is go expand it. So down here, expand it. Then go into crosshead. So just let that focus there. Double hit crosshead. So then you'll see reference. Reference. Click reference. Now we want the reference value to be 0 when they're touching. We want it to detect a change in force of 0.1 newtons. I want to go at a speed of 1 millimeter a minute. So I'm going to say reference now. Click reference. So now it says the reference drive is run. So it's actually moving now. So if you look at the bottom of the screen, you'll see that the crosshead is moving. Now it thinks that the tool separation at the moment is -78. So that's from a previous setup. So when it touches, what will happen is it'll touch, zero the point of touching, and then move away to where I started. And it'll know the exact gap between the platens. That's the whole point of this. So we know the exact gap between the platens. So if you put in a compression sample, it'll know the exact height of that sample when it touches it. So if you look over at the machine now, it's getting closer all the time. It's eventually going to touch 0 and move back to where I set it. So come back over here. You'll see that figure changing now in a few seconds. Okay, so it's done now. So it says the reference drive has been determined. So we say OK on that, and then close on that, and OK and OK. So now it knows that the gap that I started with before I started the reference is actually 0.876. So that gap there is 0.876. Now imagine that I don't want to ever get that close, or certainly any closer. So I look at the value there for crosshead travel, 239.544. If I set that as my limit, my lower limit, then I can make sure it never gets any closer than that. But in order to set that, I have to first come above it. So I memorize that, I write it down, 239.544. Back over here, press position, move up, back over to the software, up to machine, the machine icon here, double click machine, OK, and into crosshead here, crosshead, and then lower soft end. This is the one I set to 100 before, so I want to set it to 239.544. 239.544. OK, so that's there. Right, then I press OK, OK. So now what I want to do is check that I did that correctly. So back over to the machine, press position, the light lights up, then press this down and jog it down. So we're just tapping the machine, we're just doing this. Okay, we're just tapping that button. So they're getting closer, I don't want to, I could have made a mistake, so I'll keep tapping it like that, and it should trip that lower limit. And I get a message, there's the message. So it says, range violation, soft down violated. So now what I can do is I can add an extra safety. See this little thing here? Unscrew that by hand and push it up against it, and then screw it. So keeping one finger, oops, hard to do with one hand. So screw that in like that. So that's pushed up against it and screwed in. So that's my hardware limit here, and I have my software limit. So now over to here, I can just say OK on that, and now I can move away from the position, press position to light up, and then move away. So now, if you look at the gap between the jaws, it knows, between the grips, it knows the exact gap there. If you come over here, so I put a sample in, and I put a preload in. When it puts the preload on, it's then touching the sample, and it knows the exact height of the sample, and that's how it can do exact strain calculations. So basically that's the end of this tutorial, how to change a load cell and how to do a reference in compression. Thank you.